Hi, in this video we're going to take the mod graphs and see how they develop, become a little bit more complicated. So let's consider this graph here. Y equals the modulus of x plus 2. Now instead of adding a number on the end, which we saw last video where we just moves the graph up or down, what happens if I go and add a variable on the end? Now, in order to be able to tackle these sorts of graphs, we've got to consider the critical value that exists in this graph. The critical value being what happens round minus 2. Minus 2 is the value that will make this modulus bracket 0. What's on the right of it and what's on the left of it is therefore going to be important. So we're going to consider, oopsie, what's happening with this? We're going to consider what happens when x is greater than or equal to minus 2. Well, if x is greater than or equal to minus 2, in other words, it's a number like minus 1 or 0 or 1, if I put that into this modulus bracket, I'm going to come up with a positive number. So I don't need to change that. So I can simply say, right, the equation is going to look like this. It's going to be x plus 2 plus another x. In other words, it's going to be 2x plus 2. So that's the one graph that I've got. Y is going to be 2x plus 2 when x is greater than or equal to minus 2. So let's get some axes up and get that in the right sort of place. There we go. And the critical line that we're looking at is when x is at minus 2. So I'm just going to put a little dotted line down here to indicate that things are going to be happening around that line. We're going to get two different graphs happening around that line. Now, what is the value of y when x is equal to minus 2? Well, if we put minus 2 into here, we're going to get minus 4 plus 2, which is going to be minus 2. So in other words, I've got a value down over here. Now, that is the value of y when x is at minus 2. When x is at 0, we're going to get a value of 2. It shouldn't be too surprising because we've got a gradient of 2, so we go 2 up, 1 across, 2 up, 1 across. And so there is the graph that's going to exist for all the values where x is greater than minus 2. So I can draw that line in, and it's going to be a line that's going to go something looking like that. There we go. So that's what happens when x is greater than minus 2. We now need to look and see what happens when x is less than minus 2. Well, when x is less than minus 2, in other words, a value like minus 3, that's going to make what we have inside the modulus bracket a negative number. And therefore I need to multiply it by a negative in order to make the whole thing positive. So I'm going to end up with this function here. It's going to be minus x plus 2 plus x. Now if I remove that bracket, I'm going to get this. I'm going to get minus x minus 2 plus x. And if I tidy all of that up, I'm just left with y is equal to minus 2. So in other words, when x is less than minus 2, y is going to equal the graph minus 2. And what does the graph y is equal to minus 2 looks like? Well, that's simply a straight line that is horizontal. And it's going to go like that. So this is a different type of modulus graph, different to the one that we dealt with before, which looked like a V bouncing off the x-axis, or a right V. We still got the V shape, but it's now slightly twisted. If we take another example, what happens if I have something like this? If I've got y is equal to, let's just change the modulus this time, let's make it x minus 2, and instead of just having a simple variable at the end, I'm going to include another, almost like another little linear function on there. So y is going to be the modulus of x minus 2 plus 2x minus 1. Once again, like we did with the previous time, we need to consider the critical value. The critical value in this particular problem is going to be what happens when x is greater than 2 and what happens when x is less than 2. Well, when x is greater than 2, that bracket's going to be positive. That modulus bracket's going to be positive. So I can simply rewrite it as y is equal to x minus 2 plus 2x minus 1. We tidy all of that up, and I get 3x minus 3. So there's my graph when x is greater than 2. When x is less than 2, in other words, a number like 1, then my modulus bracket is going to be a negative quantity, so I need to multiply it by a negative. So I'm going to get this situation. And if I expand the brackets there, I'm going to get x minus x plus 2 plus 2x minus 1. Tidy all of that up, plus 2x minus x, it's going to give me positive x. Plus 2 minus 1 is going to be positive 1. So when y is less than 2, I'm going to get a different graph. I'm going to get the graph y is equal to 1. So let's get a look and see what this looks like on the axes. The critical value was at 2. So once again, I'm going to draw a little dotted line down where x is equal to 2, because different things are happening on either side of that line. Now, at x is equal to 2, y is going to be 3 times 2 minus 3. In other words, y is going to equal 3. So in other words, it's going to be up over here. And we can see if this situation over here at x is equal to 2, y is going to be 2 plus 1, which is 3 as well. So that's good. We've got agreement there. And now we've got to draw our line for this graph over here. We know that it's got a gradient of 3. So in other words, it's going to go 3 up, 1, 2, 3, and 1 across. And so there I can put my line in. That is the first part of my graph. This is going to look like when x is greater than 2. When x is less than 2, I've got this line, y is equal to x plus 1. So that's going to be the line. It's got a gradient of 1. So in other words, go 1 across, 1 down, 1 across, 1 down. Yep, so that's going to fit through there and there. So I've got enough points now to be able to get an idea of where my line's going to run. No, that's wrong. Undo that, undo that. Let's try this again. It's going to run from there down here like that. And there we've got our graph of the modulus of x minus 2 plus 2x minus 1. We're going to have one more video on graphs. I'm going to look at a slightly more complicated problem in the next one. So once you've finished this and you're happy with all the explanations, then go and take a look at the next video.